Folks, if you've just joined us, we're talking to the incomparable Jamaal Wilkes, who received one of the greatest accolades in NBA history from the Wizard of Westwood, Coach John Wooden. Jamaal, I'd love to actually ask you about that pyramid of success. The top of the pyramid of success, he has the words patience and faith. How did that impact you in the course of your studies with him, and would you put those at the top of your pyramid of success?
Well, it impacted me. You know, every year he would go through it at the start of the season, and you know, let's face it, we were kids, and so we really weren't interested in the pyramid of success. We were interested in playing basketball. But then again, we weren't interested in trying to learn how to put our shoes and socks on properly either, which he would demonstrate. We were interested in playing basketball. But I think what it did, it set a sensitivity or an awareness, and it kind of developed a team or culture or an organizational culture that we didn't really realize or appreciate at the time. And yes, I wouldn't change. I wouldn't make any changes to his pyramid at all. It is so dynamic and so powerful, and you know, each time I read it, I become renewed.
Jamaal, tell us one of your great memories with Coach John Wooden.
Well, yeah, you know, I think back really mostly to after I had graduated, and I would go out to his house or meet him for breakfast, or either alone or with the guys, and you know, I really began to see him very, very different, because he was quite funny. He really had a sense of humor. He enjoyed laughing, and I just recall on many instances just his just wry sense of humor. Had a great sense of timing, but he was really a funny guy. You would spend much of your visit with him laughing about stories from the past and things of that nature. Tara.
Jamaal, I'd love to reflect on another story, because it does, again, highlight the character of Coach John Wooden, which is at a level we just don't see much these days. It was only by luck that he ended up at UCLA. There's that wonderful story in 1948. He was waiting for offers from both UCLA and the University of Minnesota, and the University of Minnesota was his first choice, and they were supposed to call him at 6 p.m., and UCLA was calling him at 7 p.m. But there was some storm in the area, and we didn't have the fabulous satellite cell phone connections that we do today. So the phone lines weren't working, and the University of Minnesota couldn't reach him. So when he didn't get the phone call at 6 o'clock, he assumed that the University of Minnesota wasn't interested. So when UCLA called at 7 o'clock, he said, okay, that's a good offer. I accept your offer. And then the University of Minnesota did get through to him, and he had already given his word to UCLA. And rather than, I think, what 97, maybe 99.9% of us would have done, is called back UCLA and said, you know, I was really counting on this offer, but the phone lines were down. I'm going to my first choice school. He packed up and took his family to UCLA, which was a big move at that time for him.
It was a huge move at that time for him. He grew up in Indiana. He played at Purdue in the Big Ten, so he knew the Big Ten, and that is such a remarkable story, because you're right, as you know, 99.9% of us would have said, "Oh, but that was him." Very simple, very straightforward, and you know, you knew what you were getting. And again, as a youngster in school playing for him, you know, we were all just trying to get through school as best we could and win games and so forth and so on. But years later, you know, that behavior comes back, and it really is something that you begin to treasure more than the winning, because that is so rare that you know, living by your word and you know, not having to rely on contracts. I mean, he was truly about his word.
And it really does take somebody living that example in our lives to impart that to us more than just somebody talking about it, like as you said, a guru or a motivational speaker that's telling you how to be. He really walked his talk.
Great. That's Tara. That's what's so powerful about it, is that every day, with all the hype and the hoopla, he was remarkably the most consistent human being I've ever been around or heard about or seen, and seeing it every day, hearing it, living it with him, not being taught or lectured, but just when he would come through after games or after practice sometimes, and there would be tape on the floor, and to see him stoop and pick it up, I mean, that just said so much that you couldn't fathom what impact that had. When he could have told any of us or his assistants or the team trainer, here, go pick that trash up, but he would go pick it up himself. And I saw him do that many times. And also, I mean, the lack of swearing. I mean, I only mention this because it was just such a form of self-control. Most coaches, they swear. I mean, if they don't swear a lot, they swear a little. And he didn't swear at all. And in 4 years, I'd never heard him swear while I was there. And since then, and he would say, "Goodness gracious sakes alive," and his intonations on that, could be worse than swearing sometimes. But it was just remarkable. I asked him, and he said, "Hey, it was his self-control, his self-discipline. He wanted to show us that it could be done." And it was just, you're right, Tara. The daily influence of that is just really incredible.
And he also lived by the credo to make every day a masterpiece, to make friendship a fine art. These are things that you also don't hear a lot about in the competitive sports world. And he didn't consider a day to be really spot on unless he had done something for somebody that they couldn't repay him back for.
Now, isn't that crazy? I mean, I read that where he said that someone referenced that 2 or 3 weeks ago. I mean, it just stopped my day right there. I mean, and that's the impact he had on you. I mean, who thinks of stuff like that?
Because he was truly a team player. He wasn't about one guy standing out and kind of grabbing the gold for himself.
And I tell you what, Grace, I mean, having how great he was and how humble he was, but I remember about once a year I'd go into his office. I don't know how I would get there. I would just find myself there, and I was, I'd had it. It was too much. I was thanks, but no thanks. I was going home, and he would just start rattling off this poetry with just tremendous enthusiasm and joy, and I really didn't care for poetry much, quite honestly, but to listen to him, I would get caught up in it, and I would leave that office, and I would just feel totally renewed, and it would just strike me how odd it was that, he's the head basketball coach at UCLA, this great tradition, and we go there and we don't even talk about basketball, and not only do we not talk about basketball, he's reciting poetry, and I'm into it with him, and so that was just his holistic approach to life, balance. He often said that balance was the second most important word in the English language.
Second to love, yes.
Yeah, second to love, exactly. And and again, what coaches talk about love, and he would talk about it all the time, but his balance and his perspective and his love of people. I honestly believe that that's truly what it was. It's a farm boy, his love of people, and love for his God. And his practice of that just set him apart from the pack.
It's been an absolute honor to have you here on the Men's Dugout today. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate your genuine affection and adoration for Coach Wooden, and he truly deserves it. He is an American icon, and God bless him forever and ever, and thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you, Jamaal. So much, such a pleasure to have you here today. Talk to you soon.